Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. But today is Friday, the 24th of January, 2025. These are the stories that we will try to highlight, decipher, understand during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the partnership that has now begun, a new partnership, an extension of the partnership between the World Bank and Pakistan, a partnership worth 20 billion US dollars. This is a country partnership framework, or the CPF, that has now been launched. And of course, the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was also there. So was the country president for the World Bank for Pakistan. Our Prime Minister emphasized that the framework aims to address Pakistan's pressing economic and development challenges while fostering growth, resilience and technological progress. How will that happen? What will be the paradigms of it is what we will discuss in our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the International Day of Education. This year, the theme is artificial intelligence and education. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has reaffirmed the resolve to advance an education system that emphasizes the promise of artificial intelligence while at the same time safeguarding the essence of human creativity, compassion and purpose. And this is what we will try to highlight and understand during the course of our second story. Then we are going to talk about Donald Trump. Yes, the US President Donald Trump, who has ordered the release of the last John F. Kennedy, RFK, Martin Luther King assassination files. And as per what Donald Trump says, he says everything is going to be revealed. A lot of conspiracy theories have been going around about these three assassinations, and whether these declassification will lead to some truths being unearthed is what we will know maybe in the next couple of days. Finally, a rare plant, ladies and gentlemen, known as the corpse flower, bloomed in Sydney for the very last time today in more than a decade, emitting an odor that resembles or smells like rotting flesh. And but despite the fact that it is so rare, it delights thousands of those who stay there to witness this flower blooming with this particular odor. Let's begin with our first story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns Pakistan and World Bank and their partnership that has been going on since quite some time. But a new chapter begins in that partnership in the form of a 20 billion US dollars 10-year country partnership framework, otherwise known as the CPF. We've been joined by Amer Durrani. He's a former World Bank official and a leading economist as well. Amer, thank you very much to have joined us. Long time no see, and of course, let's begin without further ado. The World Bank, Amer, formally launches the decade-long country partnership framework with Pakistan. Our Prime Minister says that this is a landmark initiative. He also assures the government's all-out commitment to implement the CPF, urging unity among politicians, experts and bureaucrats. How do you foresee or look at the different paradigms as far as this framework is concerned and the Pakistani commitment that has been given by the Prime Minister?
Thank you very much. As you said, it's been a while. Just to correct, I'm not the leading economist. I'm a student of economics, and you can say that I'm a development professional. But thank you very much for these questions, actually coming from the fact that my alma mater, which is the World Bank, I was looking and reviewing the country partnership framework. The way I look at it, I mean, let's first look at it from the World Bank's point of view. I think what the World Bank is clearly saying with this partnership is they are looking at the government, what it has done in the past, let's say, a couple of years, realistically a year and a half, that it's actually bought what we all call fiscal stabilization. There is some movement, though some of the reforms have been stymied. But at the end of the day, the World Bank also itself has done an introspection. And basically, if you read this, you see one of the key lines, which I think a lot of the journalists have missed, is that bank partnership strategies used to be 3 years, 5 years, 3 years, 3 years rolling. But by coming in with a 10-year plan, the World Bank is actually saying that we're also worried about our own outcomes, right? Which is what their own accountability of what they lend is. So I think that's number one on prima facie. That seems to be quite stunningly visible, yet not to everybody else. On the strategy itself, the second point is regarding, if you look at some of the pillars like child stunting, learning poverty, there's climate change, cleaner energy, and better air quality. There's a lot of focus on public resource management for what they call inclusive development. But really hidden under this entire if I can call it a six-string umbrella or a chapeau, you will find that basically covers the areas the World Bank has been sort of so far undertaking for quite a while. So I think that the focus now seems to be that the World Bank has finally produced a program where it is now openly kind of there is the IMF, but here the World Bank has gone like this, providing really the ground for the reforms to be undertaken that the fund program can actually partner with and provide kind of a results-based framework overall. I think on the government side, the commitment through Iran, also some of the work that was done through Stephen Durkin, I think this is really to me, it has to be acknowledged. In fact, if you had read my piece in the paper or the editorial last weekend in the news, we basically understood that, I said the government is great, but it is missing and forgetting about the elephant in the room. So I think this program, that elephant in the room, is the fiscal imbalances, the poverty of our ability to tax properly, whether it be at the federal, whether it be at the provincial level. So if we all wake up to that, I think the government will be doing a massively amazing job. Thank you.
All right, Amer, having an experience with the World Bank and understanding the way they function, and you yourself have said that 10-year commitment is an extraordinary thing, even coming from the World Bank vis-a-vis Pakistan, which shows there's some kind of a positive indicator that has come from Pakistan that has led them to accept a 10-year deal with Pakistan. How do you view the partnership between the World Bank and Pakistan? If you look at the past, if you look at the present, and what do you foresee in the future?
Well, I mean, okay, that's a very loaded question. So I think that, look, I will partly also give you the World Bank side of the story. Look, we are amongst one of the largest borrowers, at least in the top 5, if not the top 10. At one point, we were top 3. So we have always been, this on the surface of it, this 2 billion commitment per year is actually the average the World Bank's been doing over the last 20 years with Pakistan. So the change here is this dynamic. From a World Bank standpoint, its experience in Pakistan has been interesting in the sense that the early World Bank is a great World Bank for Pakistan. We get the Indus Water Treaty, we get the dams put in place, we get massive infrastructure inputs, including in the relining of canals. And the roads, we keep forgetting that the entire N55 and N5, the World Bank has a lot to so be proud about. Our main arteries of connectivity in Pakistan, the failed experiments with railway, World Bank got frustrated, left. It hasn't done the same with India. Now, I think that the thing where I think the World Bank this time is actually saying that we are, by the way, it has 3 criteria of why it's chosen these pillars. But if you go through those criteria, you will realize that it's actually saying that, folks, these are the areas we have performed best. However, if I was in the World Bank today, I would seriously and intensely question the ability to support the maintenance of existing infrastructure that is really at the core of it all. So that's a key point. However, the World Bank will be there in energy and whatever. But I think the other experiences, look at the National Drainage Program. There was a call. The Pakistan has also, if I may be allowed to say, been a trouble child. Programs the World Bank makes for 5 years take 10 years to come, and it takes all the patience in the world for them to keep extending. At the end of the day, nobody suffers because the World Bank is the lender of last resort and the first lien holder, so they will always get paid, just like the fund. But it's really to the detriment of Pakistan and its fiscal space and its ability to show efficiency that somehow our bureaucracy has not really risen to the challenge of effectively and efficiently delivering on World Bank projects. So I think that's sort of the quick summary on that.
All right. We've also been joined, Amer, by Dr. Vaqar Ahmed. He's a senior economist. So do stay online with us. Dr. Vaqar, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Vaqar, this country partnership framework that the World Bank has signed worth 20 billion US dollars for a period of 10 years has, 6 key outcomes: reducing child stunting, addressing learning poverty, enhancing climate resilience, transitioning to cleaner energy, and improving the air quality. The document, of course, is going to serve as per the World Bank as a long-term anchor for their joint commitment with Pakistan to address key development needs for the benefit of the people of Pakistan. How do you view these 6 ambitious targets, and how attainable are they in your point of view?
Thank you very much. I think Amer Saab has given an excellent overview of the program and underlying, of course, nuances and risks. To me, I think it's been a long time coming. World Bank had been talking about such a longer-term partnership strategy for quite some time. And to my knowledge, they were really not finding the right kind of stability at a national government level to float such a thing. If they have done this kind of a political economy analysis, that now is the time to really launch such a strategy, this actually means that their headquarters now see Pakistan's governing dynamics as stable. They do see that they can work together with this government. They've got confidence in the underlying systems to really implement these large-scale, mega complex programs as they stand. So I think first and foremost, I see this as a confidence, donors' confidence in the country, and we had been waiting for this. The first time I remember that the actual work started on this, it was about 3.5 years back, and even before that, the work had started, but it had been shelved. So it's very, very welcoming that World Bank has come forth this time.
All right. Stay online with us, Dr. Vaqar, as well. Coming back to you, Amer, the World Bank says that it is, quote unquote, ambitious in taking risks for long-term plans by offering Pakistan this unusual decade-long partnership. This is, of course, has been said by the World Bank country director, Ben Hassin, who also acknowledges the high risks. As I mentioned, he says, he talks about sector-wise allocations, output targets, and implementation strategies that would require further consultations. What structural or policy reforms, in your point of view, are required, or is the World Bank hinting on for Pakistan to adhere to this 10-year program?
I think there is a massive need. I think if we have a partnership, as I said, this long and a cover of the fund program, we really need to overhaul our tax structure. And that means shutting down the Federal Board of Revenue. Because unless and until you do that, this behemoth, you could actually put all of them on retrenchment, and you'll do more in 2 areas. Number one, you will eventually start saving on the massive drag on our economy because of poor policy making, interference in policy making by a regulatory and implementing an agency that's only supposed to enforce, right, policies that the government does. These policies need to emanate from the Q block, take this back to the Q block. I think the second thing is to get planning out of this whole thing about massive resource outlays with no planning and programming. So while, as you can see, the entire report pays lip service to Uran program, I will be very honest with you by saying that the Uran program itself needs to now embed in detail these pillars, because a lot of these are soft pillars. So there's going to be a lot of what we call kind of a development policy related money outlay. There's a lot of technical assistance in this, in addition to just creating right infrastructure. So I think we need to be very, very, very cautious. That's the first part. Second part of this is that, this whole thing about seconding bureaucrats onto World Bank projects needs to stop. I think the World Bank needs to insist now more and more large private implementing firms, whether they be technical assistants, whether they be delivery, that's the only thing acceptable. That's how we can produce. I mean, I think Vaqar should love this, because, that means entities like SDPI, large entities in Pakistan that want to be in the same space as Chemonics, Tetra Tech, Cadmos, ASI. So, that is really what's going to change the ability. So delivering, especially the technical assistance directly with lesser and lesser ministerial oversight is the key.
All right, that is the key. Dr. Vaqar, coming to you, the Vice President for South Asia of the World Bank, Martin Reiser, highlights Pakistan's pivotal movement, talks about microeconomic stabilization taking place, talks about the National Economic Transformation Plan, of course, Udan Pakistan, that Amer has also alluded to. But he also describes the CPF as a collaboration that is designed to complement government efforts while addressing critical challenges. What are the challenges that are being talked about here, and how is the acknowledgement of Pakistan's stabilization being seen by the World Bank? Do you feel this 10-year program is maybe a result of that effort that Pakistan has put in the right direction?
Absolutely. And I think I would actually go a step further, that World Bank has contributed to this newfound stability, if I can suggest, because, of course, IMF alone could not have done it, and they required other development partners to pitch in once the review was approved, and World Bank also contributed, so did other donors as well. But the fact that they are still, of course, insisting that the work is only half done, when they talk about stabilization, this actually means that we're really on a stepping stone at the moment, and there's a lot of room and space to cover. And you rightly discussed with Amer Saab the details of the structural reforms. I think one of the foremost structural reforms that VP talked about, and for some it may be just common sense, is the reform of our planning and budgeting systems. So they are on record. They have said that, yes, you are very good at putting together medium-term development programs like Udan. Your provinces have also put together 5-year development strategies, but they don't translate into budgets. Budgets usually take their own direction. The projects that come for public investment approvals, for example, in your public sector development program or annual development program, all of them take a different trajectory. There's a favor for look-good projects. So that's the kind of reform that is required now. And politically motivated projects finding their space in the budget, this has to stop, and World Bank has been very vocal about this.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Vaqar Ahmed, to have joined us, to have discussed this very important avenue of partnership between the World Bank and Pakistan, which will lead to other good avenues. And I hope that also leads to all the reforms that they have been talking about actually being implemented sooner than later. Thank you very much, Dr. Vaqar. Coming to you, Amer, the World Bank Vice President for South Asia, Martin Reiser, talks about public-private partnership. He talks about private capital in underinvested parts of economy. For example, he talks about the International Finance Corporation, the multilateral investment guarantee agencies and their role. He talks about a mix of public and private sector solutions and enabling of policy reforms. I'd like to understand, because you know how the World Bank works and you know how Pakistan's economy works as well, how workable are these public-private partnerships solutions?
Oh, I think they're enormously workable. To be very honest, one of the other reports, if I was a journalist and I was a sensationalist, as the terms mean the same, sorry about that. But basically, the size of the World Bank group financing over the decade is pegged at $30 to $40 billion. It says so in the document, right? So what Martin Reiser said, he's the head of the World Bank group for South Asia, right? So essentially what the message he has conveyed is that, okay, the core World Bank funding, which is IBRD, IDA, we are very little IDA left, is going to be 20 billion. The rest of it, they hope through IFC, through Multilateral Investment Guarantee Association, which is the kind of guarantees that Pakistan needs very much, especially from a terror risk perspective, from being in a born in a bad geography space kind of perspective. I think that's very important. I think the other thing, if you realistically go back, is that in sense the PPP, why has PPP failed? PPP has failed, or public-private partnership, because we are still singing the mantra of the 60s, 70s, and then, and I mean, I bet, it's sad to say this, but people like Paul Romer, Nobel Prize winner, are fundamentally, some of us would blame them for bringing Russia, the Great Bear, down after the fall of Gorbachev, is simply because of the rapid privatization. Turkey learned lessons through that, and on the other hand, we have Temasek in Singapore, some other approaches on how to do this. Pakistan needs to do two things if this is going to materialize. Number one, it has to shut down the entire 300 plus state-owned enterprises. Really, 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 end of the story. So I think what we need to start thinking about to make this outcome, that gives the space for the private sector to move in. Now, all private sector is not bad. That's the second thing we have to embed in our psyche. Third thing, private sector, like everybody, has the right to earn a rupee, right? That is a must. That is the motivating factor. So on one hand, you have a government wasting 10 rupees for every rupee spent, and here is private sector coming in with 10 rupees to make an extra rupee. Now, you see that the equation is very simple. So I think these factors. Lastly, the shutdown of our industry. The textile sector has suffered a massive blow. In fact, the only rise of exports is primarily because of IT sector taking over and actually providing that sort of windfall. So I think, personally, if we want to do it, this is another major reform that we must do. But as you can see, there's a government fiscal structural side to it, and there is also a very important decision of a small government versus a large government. Thank you.
All right, that's a very interesting perspective to it, and of course, let's see how the coming weeks and days change the perspective as far as these reforms is concerned, and all eyes of course will be on these reforms as have been announced by the Pakistani government. Thank you very much Amer Zafar Durrani, President Re-Energia, to have joined us, to have talked to us, and I hope we'll see more of you in the coming weeks when it comes to economy and economy related questions. Thank you again, Amer, to have joined us. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns the International Day of Education. This year the theme concerns artificial intelligence and education. It of course encourages reflections not only on the power of education to equip individuals and communities to navigate, but also to understand and influence technological advancements such as the artificial intelligence. We've been joined by Professor Syed Khurazmi, who's an educationist, writer, in the studio to discuss more on the impact of education and of course the influence of new technologies, including artificial intelligence. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us and to have come to the studios. Today, of course, is the International Day of Education, and of course the theme is artificial intelligence and education. How do you view this theme? How significant is it in this day and age in the 21st century?
Oh, Omar, but first of all, I must thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and also to face these glaring lights. Well, like always, it's great to be here, but also I think education is a vast field, and you could talk on education for hours and hours. But for today and for now, I think we must redefine, proclaim, and reassess and re-say and reiterate the fact that today is a World Educational Day. Meshed into the United Nations injunctions somewhere in the pretty late in the end of the 70s, the beginning of the 80s. And like all other days, this is another day that human beings are invited to look into, look at, appreciate, and perhaps do something about. Without going into the whys and wherefores of why we should celebrate the Education Day, I think Pakistan, of all other nations, is a leader in many fields. Accepted or not accepted, liked or not liked. And I think that in education itself, because I keep globe-trotting, and in one of my visits in one of the European countries, I was talking to instead of going into the cut and dried and perhaps not so boring but factual drumming up of what education does and what it doesn't do, I would like to take you for a ride around the world and say something about what has been said about what we're doing today. So I was talking to an embassy staffer who was obviously a foreigner, and I said, "What's your next posting going to be?" He said, "Pakistan." I said, "What? Why?" He said, "Look, I want my small children, age 3, 4, 5, to start their educational vigil from Pakistan, because you people are absolutely fantastic as far as pedagogy is concerned." I like that, and I would second that. However, with the new technologies coming in, the sky is the limit, and I'm so proud of our leadership at the moment, and I think it springs from the top minds that Pakistan has at the moment. Look at what we are doing. We are exposing our coming generation to the best that you can have in education. We are giving them small little gadgetry is being given out. Punjab is leading in many ways, and our people at the top are no less behind in any case, in any way. And so I would like to put it on record that Pakistan is switching ahead, is going forward. Now, if you allow me to say, like it is said that when we go into seminars and conferences, that the first title statement is what you're after, and that's what you're going to conclude.
Of course.
And our first statement to me should be the words of Iqbal, where he said, "Kahariyo, Ghafariyo, Kudusiyo, Jabrut. ये चार अनासिर हो तो बनता है मुसलमान." So, coming back to Iqbal, the greatest eminence and the greatest superiority and the greatest supremacy that a human being can attain will be to follow the divinely revealed words beautifully put into the book that we all revere. And so this is the epitome, this is the essence of what any educational, formal, informal, technological or otherwise, is going to give to the world. Right. So, Kahariyo, Ghafariyo, Kudusiyo, Jabrut. Now, the usual debate that has come up saying that, well, is it going to replace the human mind? Like when we were small children, I was abroad in an English environment, and we were always being led to believe that with the advent of technology, people will lose their jobs. That didn't happen. All that has happened is that people are doing their jobs in a better way. They're performing much better than they would have if they had stuck to the typewriter or the daguerreotype cameras that they used to have. So with all the other things coming in, I think we are miles ahead of what we were. The same thing applies to AI. artificial intelligence is a thing that I think it's a godsend, because I remember I was in Saudi Arabia in the 80s, and the title on Time magazine was Mr. Computer. That was a time when the computer came with a bang. Now we've come a long way since then. Now we are coming up with artificial intelligence. And lots of very light-hearted things being said about artificial intelligence. Is, you know, one very innovative and accomplished person I met in London a few months back was an AI man, and I said, "How are you doing?" He said, "Well, we had created a human being, but then the human beings, but the robots came so close to being a human that they started getting into complications, and so we switched it on to, and so that was in a lighter way.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the theme of this year, that is, of course, artificial intelligence and education. And our Prime Minister has reaffirmed the resolve to advance an education system that embraces the promise of artificial intelligence, while at the same time safeguarding the essence of human creativity, compassion, and purpose. How important is this?
Well, I think it's a brilliant brainwave to start with, because, you know, leaving aside diversions and dispersions and deviations, I think that there's no greater line of thought that could have been accomplished, been ensconced by him, in the sense that artificial intelligence for Pakistan at the moment will come in at a time when our education is going on the back foot, perhaps. Now, we've been talking about improving education. We've been shouting from the rooftops, but I don't think much has happened. However, with what you've just said, and with the thought that you've just expressed,
it's not my thought; it's our Prime Minister's.
Yeah. So, with the feelings that the leadership is having at the moment, I think, like I said earlier, the sky is the limit, because now look at it. The first thing is, lots of people have lots of negations to put into it. But the first thing would be, well, where is the money going to come from? Well, we all know the famous quotation when somebody said, somebody as great as one of the philosophers of arts and sciences in America, he said, "Well, gentlemen, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance." So I think that sums up the whole thing. However, the other thing that I think, for instance, our educational system also has been, in a way, wanting to the extent that I attended an educational conference in Nairobi many years back, and there was a very knowledgeable Englishman who came and started off the conference. And the moment he saw a lot of, well, girls and boys, men and women, ladies perhaps, sitting in the audience, he said, "Well, you're all here to further the science of education. Now, would you, I'm going to relate this to what the Prime Minister has said."
Okay.
And he said, "Well, would some of you like to define what education is?" This will bring us to the AI and to the Prime Minister's statement. So lots of people gave lots of blind shots, and we were surprised and astonished to hear his definition of education, where he said that, okay, you're all right, you're not wrong, you're not very far, but really speaking, after you go through what all the sages have said about it and what the modern technologies are leading us to, education doesn't teach us wisdom, education doesn't give us knowledge. No, that's what the common man thinks. He says, well, education gives us knowledge. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. No, it doesn't. So what does it give us? He said, education doesn't give us information, education doesn't give us knowledge, education doesn't give us technology, education teaches us to doubt. He said, to doubt? What we thought that was exactly the opposite of what we were going into. And he said, unless you're critical about what you want to learn, and unless you have a system where you do not accept what's blindly what's being told to you, you're far from anything close to education. Now, what is going to happen now is that with this I think with this very enlightening approach to the AI, which is not lagging behind from any of the other nations around who think they're very technologically superior. They are not. So with this approach to it, we will turn from bookworms, from learning by rote, from gathering information and spilling it out in examinations, to research, to critical evaluation, to critical appreciation. For instance, what does AI? How do the pundits, if you like, the educational pundits, define artificial intelligence? Well, they say artificial intelligence would give you high quality of education. Yes, it would, because it would be very accurate. It would be scalable. You'd be able to measure how much of know-how you're pouring out into whatever you're making or doing. And it's affordable. Yes, it is affordable. There's no doubt. It will be more affordable as time goes on.
True.
Now, for instance, when we first had the calculators, we thought, oh my God, the children are going to forget all their tables. They didn't. Because all that you do with calculators is not solve sums and give answers.
It facilitates.
It's an aid, it's a facility, it's a gadgetry which makes you come to a small conclusion earlier than otherwise.
Now, coming to education and AI and the theme of this year as far as Education Day is concerned, in your point of view, how can we uphold and enhance human agency when it comes to education in the 21st century using artificial intelligence in, how should I put it this way, in a manner that does not oversee the right perspectives or methodology of traditional education?
You would, I think what you were trying to insinuate is that how would it help the furtherance of education from the system that we have at the moment.
More or less,
yeah.
yes.
Well, really speaking, to tell you the truth, like I said, since it's only an aid and a facility to help you come to small conclusions for a bigger conclusion.
True.
It is something that is long delayed as far as we are concerned. This nation is one of the greatest nations in the world, because you find small little girls making helicopters in their backyards or something like that, which is difficult to believe. And another young gentleman in Karachi perhaps coming up with a car which runs on something other than petrol, etc., etc. Now, if we give this artificial intelligence aid facility, if we make it nationwide, which I think the present leadership is absolutely wonderfully doing.
All right.
I think that we should outpace any of our competitors in this field in the minimum possible time.
All right, and that is what, of course, education is. With every new century, with every new decade, education comes with new paradigms, with new methodologies, and with new ways to enhance critical thinking, innovation, and ethical responsibility in the new generation. That is what education serves as a purpose, and that is what our government is also trying, as our Prime Minister has also talked about, recognizing the transformative power of education in preparing our youth to thrive in the evolving technological landscape. Thank you very much, Professor Syed, the Khurazmi, to have joined us. If you could just stay with us for about 2 more minutes while I end the show. I'd just like to end this part of the show.
Allow me to finish it with the saying, which will a verse which will encompass everything that we've talked about. May I?
Of course, please go ahead.
Like I said, the great job being done by the leadership at the moment, and with, I may be prejudiced in favor of the army, with all that we pick up from the battlefield, which comes into the books. When I said this to someone who wasn't very enthusiastic about what I was saying, and he said, well, what do you really mean? I mean, why are you eulogizing things which are relevant but not? I said, look, I want to draw your attention to a couplet where it was said by a person known as Iqbal, who said that artificial intelligence must have the battlefield background that we pick up and put into books, which is what? Which is Kudrat ke maqasid ki karta hai nigehbani. Who does it? Kudrat ke maqasid ki karta hai nigehbani. एक बंदाए सहराई या मर्दे कोहिस्तानी. So we pick this up from our Kohistan, we pick this up from our oceans, we pick this up from Punjab, we pick this up from our borders, and that is our greatness.
That is our greatness. I think we should today also realize the greatness of our young generation that is coming up with innovations and through the use of new technologies such as AI, and of course the new innovations as far as education is also concerned. So many things that have happened. I think Pakistan is poised to take the lead as far as education is concerned. I just wanted to, before we end the show, talk about some of the initiatives, including the establishment of high impact IT labs, digital hubs, Google Center of Excellence, smart classrooms, e-Taaleem portal, e-Rozgar centers, software technology parks, and the list goes on as far as Pakistan is concerned. Let's come to our last two stories very, very quickly. The first concerns Donald Trump, who has ordered the release of the last JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King assassination files. And he has said, and I quote, everything will be revealed. Now, as you very well know, there are so many conspiracy theories when it comes to these three assassinations that there have been movies made, documentaries made on that. Now that the official files are going to be made public and unearthed, will those reveal new insights as far as these three assassinations are concerned that were previously unknown? Well, only the next couple of days will tell us that. A rare plant, finally, ladies and gentlemen, known as the copse flower, has bloomed in Sydney today, and it has bloomed once. It blooms once in a decade, and it emits an odor that is, as per a lot of people say, likened to rotting flesh. But it delights thousands who queue for a whiff of this plant when it blooms. This whiff of a rotting flesh, I don't know why it interests people, but as they say, you know, a lot of people have an inkling for the unusual, and this is unusual to say the least, but it blooms once in a decade. Anyways, we wanted to share this with you to end this week. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. Today is the last show of the week. We'll see you inshallah on Monday with new stories segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Have a great weekend. Allah Hafiz.